So, yes, the female body is very, very sensitive in this way. So, in our culture, there's a full spectrum of violence towards the vagina. And all this violence is promoting this immense suppression of the feminine. So, verbal abuse towards the vagina, shaming and blaming women and their sexualities and this sort of thing, making women feel unsafe, just essential systematic fear tactics in relationships or in culture, physical abuse, it's very effective, rape and systematic rape. So systematic rape in relationships or in warfare on a huge epigenetic level, where this has happened in Africa a lot, where they use rape in warfare, particularly this what happened in Sierra Leone, where child soldiers were forcibly trained to rape women with broken bottles and bayonets and things like this, to create this long-term epigenetic scar in an enemy village or enemy culture that would create an epigenetic ripple effect through all of the offspring of those women in the future as well. Because this sort of damage, basically, it totally changes the female brain on a level of the nervous systems, and basically creates a culture of women in that culture that are very subservient and easy to control. So this is where it's used in warfare, and this is basically going to create 100 years worth of trauma through one event. And again, female circumcision, psycho-spiritual genital lobotomy, and there's a full spectrum there. And in our culture, if we look at someone like the guy who said, oh, there's this goddess complex in this area, well, what does he want? He wants docile women. And there's too many goddesses. Oh, he wants a small amount of docile women. So he wants less women and he wants docile women. So all of these attributes of the corrupt guru, all these techniques, are all of the same energy. Any way you want to suppress women, all the way from female circumcision just to language, is the same energy. I want to approach one last thing on this little segment here is the worst cuss word in our culture, C-U-N-T, is essentially the definition of that word. This is the worst word for the worst thing. When something's really, really bad, I'm going to say the C-U-N-T word, right? The definition of that word is the place where we all came from. So the definition of that word is also the most sacred thing we know about, the place where we came from. So the worst thing, the worst cuss word for the worst thing in definition is also the most sacred thing, which creates a huge boggling reality in our culture of women having this, basically through our language, having this shame driven into your body each time people say this word. So be very mindful of this word and don't use it, because we live in a culture which is sick. Okay? There's a sickness of how we talk about the female body. And this is very important to realise that we live in a world where, like, if you work on a building site in Australia, the way men talk about women on a building site is just appalling. And to realise that you're in a peer pressure situation where if you basically stand up for women on a building site and say that's horrible, you will be shunned and basically abused and or separated or fired or whatever. You will be systematically cast out by the men there who are subscribing to the corrupt guru energy of wanting to collectively suppress women together as a team, and men who won't play ball are the enemy as well. And this is where we have this whole idea of a systematic a man who is sensitive enough and vulnerable enough and strong enough to stand up for women is systematically shunned by men who are not vulnerable and able to separate women from themselves and attack them and use them as a commodity. So what does the corrupt guru fear? He fears an end to his food source. And what is his food source? His food source is a constant stream of innocent, naive young women that he can prey upon. Okay, as a commodity, as something to basically lift his own ego and self-gratification, and also women who will never challenge him, who are docile enough just to be used in this way, and a constant flow of them. Another case study I want to mention here is the corrupt shaman, say like in a ayahuasca retreat, for example, say in South America, where these guys are leadership in the retreat, and they seem really amazing. They run these incredible ceremonies, and all the women are like, wow, this guy's so amazing. But then he just basically sleeps with the girls, and then the retreat's over in 5 days, and it's just basically a big energetic disaster where he's just feeding off this innocent, naive young women coming to the retreat. Then they're all gone, and next week some more come. Okay, so basically they've set up the structure around themselves to seem really cool and all like amazing, and women are like, wow, oh my god, and you can sleep with them, and then they see you later, and they just leave disenchanted, going, that didn't seem really very ethical at all. That was, I actually feel, so these sorts of things make women feel very, very, very disenchanted, and in the future creates a lot of damage in the sympathetic nervous system in women, where they've become fearful and suspicious of men in leadership who portray themselves as men of good sexual and moral intent. And a lot of women are just definitely in a constant state of suspicion and disbelief that there's any nice guys out there, and it's very hard for men who are trying to be good guys, because a lot of women will not believe in you. This is really serious stuff, guys. So the corrupt guru feels an end to his food source, and he also feels empowered women who will challenge him. Okay? So, all women have the physiological faculties to be super psychic warrior women. Now, as we talked about the role of the warrior last week, we're talking about a warrior in the sense of understanding our oneness with everyone. And a warrior in the sense of understanding that we can all share information through space and time. Okay? And a warrior understanding that creativity and love and oneness is a way of being and sharing, and consent and transparency as a lifestyle, and understanding that using love and light and good intentions as a way to transmute any negative situations in our lifestyles. So a woman who's completely in a culture and from a history and from genetics where she's untraumatized, has got all these beautiful chemicals and free flow and energy between her sexual center and her brain, right? She is completely aware that her creativity and her psychic functions are coming from her womb and her vagina, because of the link between the autonomic nervous system and the vagina. 95% of our emotional responses are not chosen. They come from the subconscious, the autonomic nervous system, where we're like, oh, good vibes, bad vibes, whatever. And this is from this non-local awareness in this part of the body. This is very, very powerful. So as this links to the autonomic nervous system, she can be, looking after children or whatever she's doing, or hunting, be completely aware of things before they happen, and completely in tune with other people, and able to have a lot of psychic connection with other people through this area. Okay, so women who are activated in this way, this is a normal state of consciousness. This is normal. We live in a culture where that is not normal because of the amount of trauma through time that a lot of people have experienced. There are people out there like this, but this sort of healing process is about coming back to normal. Now, women like this understand that one of the most divine states of femininity is surrender as well, and is surrender to the masculine, and she lives in a state of also trusting the masculine. Okay, and she also lives in a state of her own empowerment and ability to choose when to surrender and not to surrender. Okay, and she also understands that there are roles that the women can play in keeping men in line and helping men to grow and challenging men and pushing them to open their heart more and grow and become more powerful in our communities, to help everyone and become warriors as well. There's a very strong psychic faculty in women, when they're activated in this way, to push men forward and to keep them in line on ethics and integrity and love. This is very important. Now, the corrupt guru does not want to ever interact with a woman like that at all. So the ultimate nemesis of the corrupt guru archetype is the empowered goddess. Okay? And that's very important to realize. And this is why women who are becoming activated and aware of this way, they're coming across faculties in our society that is trying to suppress them in any way it can. Because women who are aware of this big game are the ones who can change it. And men can change it too, but we all need to work together. It's not about blaming masculine or feminine. As soon as we play any kind of blame games here, we are putting the essentially the cause of this outside ourselves. We all need to take responsibility, karmic responsibility for our ancestors and for other people in our community, and to basically love and forgive each other, masculine and feminine, through this process. So, the corrupt gurus, these archetypes work with each other through time. Okay? This is very strange. So if we're looking at the systematic circumcision, or the systematic rape and warfare, basically this is epigenetic. And this is basically supporting other corrupt guru archetypes in the future by traumatizing a population. So these sorts of, these men are almost creating a system where they're setting up that system again in the future. There's a whole other energy where this kind of keeps going, where these corrupt guru comrades are working through time to traumatize the feminine long term. Alright guys, we're going to take a wee break and get into the next scene.